Hi, everyone. Today I am here with Ani King, one of our long list. So for the Smoke Long Quarterly Workshop Prize, we have a long list of for the year 2024 of 50 writers out of about 300. And the reason we're doing this today is Ani had 5 flashes on that list. So usually we have a written interview that we're doing on our blog, and Ani has also done one of their stories, Kitchen Dancing. And but we're going to talk about lots of other things today. And but let me tell you a little bit about Ani King. Ani King, they, them, is a queer, gender non-compliant writer, artist, and activist from Michigan, and is the first place winner of the 2024 Blue Frog Annual Flash Fiction Contest, a Smoke Long Grand Micro Competition 2023 finalist, and has had work featured in Splitlit magazine. They are a current Smoke Long Emerging Writer Fellow and can be found at aniking.net, or trying to find somewhere to quietly finish a book without any more interruptions. And I think we've settled this. Have you thrown a book at somebody who interrupted you, or have you only considered it?
I am sure that I have thrown books at siblings. I'm the oldest of 7.
Oh yeah, you told me that one time.
And yeah, and there's a 15-year age gap between the youngest and myself. And for sure, there were times where I was like, I am just trying to finish this Babysitter's Club book. And if you don't get away from me, I am flinging it at you. And then I would feel really bad for the book.
Yeah.
Because, be nice to books.
Of course. You don't want to hurt the book
Right.
on a head. Family comes up so often, right? Family, of course, is fair game for flash writers. We write about family a lot. But apparently, you have a lot of family to write about.
I
Do they
do.
do they comment on?
A couple of my sisters they stay pretty in touch. I am a little careful about how much I deliberately share with my family. I've only recently started writing about one of my brothers who passed away about 25 years ago, in a way that's not just therapy on the page, but I do try to give them a heads up, hey, this is about Matt, and this is told from my perspective, and I know that there are details that are left out. And because I think it is hard when you're telling a story that isn't just your own to, I don't know, because sometimes I'm just like very quiet about it. I'll tell, my writing community and like other people, and I won't call attention to it with my mom, where I'm like, this might make you sad. So,
Yeah.
But they're largely very supportive. I
Excellent.
don't know how engaged they totally are, and that's okay.
Yeah, but that's really, really cool to have so many of them and for them to be supportive, the ones that keep in touch.
Mhm.
So you are, without a doubt, a prolific writer. So what's your routine and what drives you to write? Because every time I read something you've written, I think, wow, the imagination, the propulsion, the momentum in the writing is just so pleasing. And it's that way every single time. So what's your routine like and what drives you?
I was glad to get this question a bit ahead of time because I think about it a lot. And I think a lot of it is not writing specific routine. It's, take care of yourself routine. I think there's this impression that, as writers, we can function better under a lot of pressure or, all of these like terrible conditions. And I have definitely learned that that is not true, at least for me. So if I do things like go to bed on time and make sure I drink water and eat and set aside space for things instead of just, trying to whip something out in between other stuff, it helps a lot. So mornings are very much my dedicated writing time. I get up before everyone else. I make my coffee in the same way while I feed the cats. And it's probably the most regimented I am about anything. It's just, I'm so protective of that morning time. And then I will do some writing or some editing. And I try to make sure I don't function super well under the here's the amount of words I have to write per day. I know for some people that's really effective. For me, that becomes a sort of like pressure that my brain just bucks against. So it's more just what did I do that was writing related today?
Mm.
Um, and I keep tons and tons of random snippets, notes, and things on my phone because my weirdest thinking time, which I think like start has a lot of those starts for me is as I'm falling asleep and I flip over and I'm like, oh my God, I have to get this down. Or I'm going for a walk or I'm at a stoplight. Like I get my best ideas at the least convenient times.
Exactly. I know that.
Um, right. So, and then I think I let the workshop structure a lot for me. And I think that that has helped a ton because now instead of having to set up and maintain a structure, I just have to adhere to one. And there's something about like I'm definitely someone who struggles a bit with completionism, right? Like so I want to check all the boxes. I want to be complete by the time. I do well with the deadline. And so for me, that's been really, really effective.
Okay, that's a great transition to the second question. Uh, you must have known this. How do you, so, okay, so you use the workshop, and we're talking about Smoke Long Fitness,
Yes.
to give you structure and uh, to give your own inner discipline, sort of room to roam, I guess, because if a person is not disciplined, the structure might even feel like a pain. But I love structure and I love deadlines myself, and so creating a workshop is like this is what I would want to give me structure. But but how do you approach these writing tasks? Because they are specific writing tasks. It's not just a prompt, or it's not simply a go write something type of day. They
Mhm.
are focused on specific themes and narrative structures and devices. And so, how do you go into these writing tasks?
I think I just try to go into it being open, right? One of the things that you say a lot, especially in summer and March Madness, is to let your drafts be creative, be messy, just let them exist, right? And so I try to think about that, especially anytime I'm writing something new, and sort of let the story yes and itself all the way to the end. And um, I think with flash fiction, especially it helps me to sort of let the story propel itself and try to be like, okay, whatever happens, happens. You can always fix it in post, right?
Hmm.
But Monday mornings, I get up, I check the prompt. I essentially create two documents every single time. I keep track of the tasks, and then I have a drafts thing where I, just list the prompts themselves out and kind of figure out what I'm choosing. And then a lot of times I will go back through those like late night notes and find a starting line that kind of resonates because I struggle sometimes with focus when it comes to like free writing in the morning. I find that if there's any time I am battling my ADHD, it is then if there's a lot going on. And so instead of trying to be really rigid, just sort of being flexible, okay, if I can't find my starting point from here, then
Hmm.
I have somewhere to go from. And then just let the prompts sort of guide. I love the structural ones because I feel like those are the things that break me out of patterns. I have a lot of stuff that I know I'm comfortable with, I've gotten good at. I like to draw from it. I like to do those long stories without a lot of breaks. I really like anaphora and certain types of repetition. And so anytime something comes up that sort of says, cool, try this instead, those are the ones I get really excited about.
No, that's good to know. And that feedback is always great to hear. So feedback. So Smoke Long Fitness is a peer review workshop. So the editors who create the task, and it's been myself for a while, um, are not actually in the workshop reading drafts. And one reason we do that is because these drafts can also be sent to Smoke Long, and we read anonymously. So to maintain that anonymity, we prefer a peer review workshop, and we have peer reviewers in our workshop who are dynamite flash writers. So So I feel very comfortable with I feel comfortable with the standard of feedback. But now, what kind of feedback do you need? And what kind of feedback do you think, you know what? I will say thank you very much, but you won't be following it.
Um, Big picture feedback is always great for me. How did you feel about the story? What did you take away from it? I find that getting a sense of how somebody interpreted the story will help me decide if that's the direction I wanted it to go in.
Mm,
I think, especially writing about things that have to do with class and social distinctions and gender and so on, um, there usually is an intent that you want someone to take away. And then sometimes it doesn't land, right? You're like, that is not the direction I meant to write in. So I love knowing what people thought, like what they felt. I'm a very vibes driven writer, so I think that helps a lot. Um, and then I'm not a big line edits person.
mm,
I try to let myself, like we talked about, be messy, be bold, put things out there. And if I start to focus a lot on catching every possible error, then I start to over edit before it's time. Um, and so it's like even when I'm giving feedback, if I notice a spelling error and it isn't something significant enough to potentially alter the store, I just kind of move on. Like this is not
mm.
that part of it.
Right.
Um,
The person will catch it sooner or later. And that type of line editing is important when before publication from the editor who's going to be publishing it,
yeah.
possibly. Um, yeah, I straddle the fence there,
Mhm.
um, because I'm okay with anything anyone wants to tell me. I don't care.
Right,
It's
like I'm okay with it, but I think the line edit stuff in a first draft is stuff where I'm like, okay, cool, not where I'm at yet, setting it aside for later.
right. Someone did that to me one time, picked apart a micro that I had sent to some editor friends, picked it completely apart, crossed out sections or something. And I
Ugh.
thought, oh, that's not what I needed at this point.
It's
Right.
like you don't want to I took a Kathy Fish workshop 7 or 8 years ago. It was the first time I did, and I loved her approach to first draft feedback, which is
Mm,
you need to decide your goal as the person
mm,
giving feedback. And for me, it's always how do I make sure that the person knows what is really resonating for me in this so they will keep working on it.
right.
Um,
Especially
not
draft. Yeah.
Right, not how do I make sure that this is the most polished it can be because it's early, right? You have no idea what form it's going to end up in.
Right.
And then for drafts where I've really been working on them, I'll try to be super specific about, hey, I feel really good about this part and this part, but I feel like I'm missing a connection or there's something about the character thing. And I think sometimes that being specific and the here's where I feel like I'm struggling because sometimes you'll get people who come back and say, I don't see that. I see the connection here, but what I see in this section might be what's actually causing that to feel disjointed. So,
Yeah. And it's up to us to take that feedback for what it's
mhm.
worth, right? Because
Yeah.
we're all humans. And so not every person who gives feedback is going to be a great feedback giver. So uh yeah, it's just full of surprises, that type of
Mhm.
feedback. Let's move on to the publications that you had in 2024. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Do you know how many publications you had in 2024? I did not prepare you for this question.
I think it's 23, 24, 25, something like that. I did do an end of year wrap up and then just let it kind of slide out of my brain for the rest of time.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
um, I submitted so much last year
yeah.
and it
Good.
was, yeah, like it felt like a very busy year.
Yeah, good. So we're talking about the stories Such Good Care, published in Your Impossible Voice. Fellas, is it gay? In Tramp Set. Parole Day, acrylic on canvas in literary namjooning. Mother, Mother, Wasp, Mothers in Split Lip magazine. It's a very, very good, uh, sort of fragmented, very voicey story. Just go read it. Mother, mother, wasp, mother. All you have to do is Google that because it'll come up. And kitchen dancing. Now, kitchen dancing appears in Mother, Mother, Wasp, Mother as well. Uh, Ani, do you dance in the kitchen?
Yeah, oh yeah. Like I
Okay,
was a
good.
choir kid and a
Uh-huh.
drama kid, and if I have the kitchen, then that's like that space is up for fair grabs, and I'm sort of always in
Hmm.
musical motion
Yeah.
if I'm busy. So yeah, it's kind of a
Mhm.
thing.
I sing
And
in the kitchen.
oh yeah,
If I'm cooking, I'm singing.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, and I'm usually making up a song about when Video Guy is going to get his dinner.
I
Uh,
love it.
Yeah, but I love that you're a kitchen dancer, and the so 250th annual Radish Town Day Summer Parade, or as you like to call it, that Radish Town story, or yeah, and that won the Blue Frog Flash Frog competition and many more. Um, but uh, can you tell us maybe just one interesting story about the journey to publication of one of these stories?
Yeah, I think probably the Radish Town one is the one that sticks out most because I worked on it from so many angles for a long time, and it wasn't until I had totally tabled it and then started doing the fitness workshop that I resurrected it. And I did it specifically for the Blue Frog competition. Like I pulled it out of retirement, nuked almost everything about it and just started over with the concept. Um, and it was really fun to do. And I had been really struggling with writing and writing process for quite a while up until joining the workshop. And so that was one of the first ones where I really felt like I hit my stride as I was going through it, where, you get that, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but you're just like in that zone and the details are coming out and you can see the place and it's coming together. And that's the only place I submitted it. I was like, this is for this contest. And if it doesn't go anywhere, fine, I'll still submit it again. And then when I got the email that was like, congratulations, the way it was worded, I was like, wait, did I just win this? Like, what just happened here? And had to like go have my personal video guy, who's actually a guitar guy, read it
Uh-huh.
and be like, I won this, right? Like,
Oh, that's wonderful. Um, and yeah, of course, we love to hear it, and we definitely love to celebrate when our participants win competitions. And I think if I'm correct, um, our participants have won or placed in every Flash competition with Flash that they began in the workshop. So we think it works. We think community works. Um, but and you've said this in your kitchen dancing interview on at Smokelong, because you can read this interview at Smokelong. Um, my question is, what do you say to someone who's considering doing a workshop? And you were like, well, yeah, do it. But now you are a particularly good workshop person. It's like if we could have 200 Ani Kings in the workshop, we would definitely want 200 Ani Kings because you're really dedicated. You're very supportive. I would say you are the first person to congratulate somebody. You love the idea of community. That you feel that from
yeah.
you, um, and so. Um, But what do you say to someone who's saying, I don't know, because I'm not so sure about giving feedback, or I'm not so sure about the time constraint, or what do you say to these people?
I tell him like one that's valid, right? Like keep your capacity in mind. I think there were times when my kids were younger and work was crazier and all of that where I'm not sure I could have committed to the level that I can now and that I enjoy now,
Mhm.
but that you can still get something out of workshop community and give something back to workshop community without giving feedback in every single piece, on commenting in every single victory. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to be like one with the workshop for it
Yeah.
to be valuable in both directions. And I think, having a sense of what you want to get out of it. Um, and then being open to that changing, right? When I first started, it was, I just really want to start writing again. I want to stop banging my head against old drafts over and over and over again. I want to move forward. And so that has shifted from, okay, cool, I have a very good writing process. My output I'm very comfortable with. Um, I can accept that it dips under certain like constraints, right? And now it's, hey, I want to keep focusing on initial story structure, right? Like just bringing things together and building muscle memory and so on. And so I think as long as you kind of know, here's one thing I'd like to be able to do or do more of or do better or do differently, you can build on that. And honestly, I think that I tell people too who are really worried about it, like you're not going to be the only person who has time constraints or who is going through it sometimes or who needs a minute.
Mm.
And sometimes it's nice just to have that community when it is happening to say, hey, folks, I don't think I'm going to get to feedback until later this week because X, Y, and Z is going on.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you can let yourself be a little bit vulnerable to being human with a group of people, that it's kind of good overall. And in the long run, I think it's also good for your writing because it strips away a little bit more of that pressure to perform when you get that sort of remembrance of we're all people and we're all trying to help each other out and perfection isn't real.
Yeah. There is that sense though, and I don't know because I'm not being involved in other workshops recently. I was involved in other workshops in the 90s. Um, the workshops that I was involved in the 90s were very competitive and really catty sometimes, and people were not really nice to each other, and their cliques formed, and that's very difficult because friendships form, definitely. But
Yeah.
the danger is that when a clique forms and that people begin um, talking about other people about how like, and that's kind of high school. And it did happen to that workshop that I was in the 90s. And uh, but is the feeling amongst Flash writers is sort of different though, isn't it? Is that
Yes. It feels like it is, right? One I love about the workshop is that we switch it up. Like so you will end up with people you've worked with before if you're in the workshop long enough. I'm in my second year. I've worked with a lot of people, but there's always somebody new, which is fantastic. And I do think that you form, friendships outside of it, but the Flash community is very different from um, writing community stuff I was looking into in, the 2010s and so on, where it was Flash was not really legitimized for a lot of people at the time. And you'd get that, well, why wouldn't you just write this in third person past? First person present is stupid. Or, like all of that stuff where it was just like, there are these rules and you're all breaking these rules. And I think that when you're this group of people who are writing in a way that sort of looks at rules and says, I bet I can do the opposite of that and pull it off,
yeah.
that there is a sort of connection there, right? But I have found, especially the Flash communities that I'm familiar with, are so supportive, right? Or very open about, man, I'm so jealous about that, but I'm also so happy for you, right? And I
Yeah.
think it feels like there's an intentionality, at
Hmm.
least with a huge part of the community, towards being supportive, towards, hey, your story would be great at this place. You should submit it here. Hey, I found a contest call. You should do that.
Hmm.
People who, most of the back chatter conversations that I have with folks about people in the workshop are, oh my God, did you know you can get great feedback from so and so? I'm so glad that they're in my group.
Hmm.
Or I just read this crazy story by this person. It's so good. I can't wait for you to read it. And it's
Hmm.
not that, sort of backstabby and there's only one right way to do anything sort of feeling that it kind of kept me away from some of the writing community stuff for a while. Just that feeling of not being able to belong if you're doing it differently.
Yeah. We'll say that, and then somebody will give you some really mean feedback tomorrow.
Right. Like, And I've never gotten mean feedback in the workshop. I've gotten feedback I disagreed with. I've gotten feedback where I felt like maybe the read wasn't super close,
Yeah.
where like that kind of thing. But I don't think I've ever gotten anything where if I sat for a minute and came back, I
Mhm.
felt like the intent was just to be cruel. And
Yeah.
in the other writing community, there were times where I did get that, where it was like, that sense of like, you should just give up and throw yourself off a bridge if you're going to write like
Oh
this.
God, no.
You're
Okay.
like,
Well, I pray that it remains that way because I
yeah,
love to see people supporting one another. I think we have had the situation before that it got a little weird, and uh, I have asked a couple of people to leave the workshop before, um,
yeah,
and I just made it clear that that's just not that's right. We're all here rooting for one another because we
yeah,
want with the best. And your voice is unique. Your work is very not similar because because before we met today, I read the stories again, and I was telling you I saw similarities because there's kitchen dancing in Mother Wasp Mother, and you wrote a story kitchen dancing. Do you sometimes uh, ping off of phrases in other stories and say, ah,
oh yeah,
it's a story?
yeah, very much so. Like I think I probably have Easter eggs of some sort in, a lot of stories, in part because I think one of the things that I got more comfortable with is that drawing on things you have experienced and, figuring out how to put them into a story that isn't necessarily memoir, right, or autobiographical. And so I think there's a lot of overlap. I write a lot about family. I
Yeah.
write a lot about trying to find connections
Mhm.
with people, and just being messy. And I think, that write small to write big thing is what finally sort of clicked at some point. And so yeah, there are settings that I keep in mind. I've like moved all over the place when I was a kid, but there are a few ones that really, stick with it. A place in northern Michigan where like the poverty line is very obvious. You have, 5% of the place where people are highly degreed and they're making a good amount of money and they live in fancy neighborhoods, and then everyone else who's working two part-time jobs and, not living comfortably. And it's a place where almost everyone goes to jail at least once. And, it has the whole, come on vacation, leave on probation thing. And so I think there's a lot to draw from there. And I was thinking about this a little bit last night too, where it's you can write a story that has universality to it and have all of the details, the setting details be different because most people know what it's like to have dinner with somebody that's uncomfortable. Most people know what it's like to be in a situation where you don't feel connected or you don't feel like you fit, even if nobody else in that scene really feels the same way. And so yeah, a lot of stuff I think that crosses over. And then just things that I like to represent from my own life, things like kitchen dancing, things where I can put a bit of myself or my experiences in that I think will be relatable, but not the story is only about me and the story is only about how I feel, which,
Mhm.
then this is just a journal entry.
Right. I don't, yeah, and I don't actually get that when I'm reading your work. I don't think this is only about, I think this is, wow, this is about so much. Um, and I can't wait to see all of these stories in the Ani King collection, right? So, are you sending this out?
I'm working on it. My intent was to have a manuscript with the collection out at least to a few different places in the first half of the year, and I didn't consider things like I would be buying and selling a house, doing a fellowship. I got promoted at work. Like there were all of these things that happened. So I have a chapbook, a small one out on submission one place, but my goal after we move is to really sit down and get an actual full collection together. Here's what I have, here's what it's missing. And I'm going to plug real quick, have a contact page on your website. Um, I did have somebody reach out and say that they would be interested in looking at a manuscript if I had one, which I was like, this doesn't happen in real life. What are you talking about? But so there might be an opportunity there, and I would love to put that out. And I have some, not seen before stuff that I'd love to include in there. And I've got a couple of different collection sort of areas, right? Like I've got my horse girl stories, and I've started writing some that are about a large family of boys and their single mom. And I don't know, there's a part of me I think that likes collecting things. Here are these characters, or here's this place, or here are these ideas.
Horse Girl sounds like a novella in Flash. Um,
Potentially.
yeah. Okay. So, and this summer we're going to be thinking about the novella in Flash in a Smoke Long Summer. Be a good time to spiff that up and send it out.
Yeah.
Ani King, I have had such a wonderful time talking to you today. Do you have any questions for me? I'm joking.
I mean, I could. I totally
No.
always have questions. What
No.
songs do you like to sing most in the kitchen?
Oh no, I told. Well, I'm sorry.
I mean, the
Maybe I.
making one's up,
Yeah,
but
I make ones up about video guys dinner. Yeah, when I'm cooking.
I
I
love that.
told you that before. Okay. All right, Ani, thank you so much. Yeah,
Sure.
everyone, go read Ani King's work. Such Good Care, Your Impossible Voice. Fellas, is it gay? Tram Set, Parole Day, Acrylic on Canvas, Literary Namjuning. Mother, Mother, Wasp Mother, a favorite. At Split Lip, a magazine, also a favorite. Kitchen Dancing at Exposition Review, which won second place in their Flash competition. And the 250th annual Radish Town Day Summer Parade, or as Ani likes to say, that Radish Town story, which won the Blue Frog competition in 2024. Ani, you are a delight. Thank you so much for everything you do in the workshop, and thank you for being such a wonderful fellow in our Emerging Writer Fellowship. So, and everyone watching, I hope to see you in the workshop.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Chris.
Bye-bye, Ani.